why am I actually doing this? Because sometimes you're like, oh, I just want it in the surface level. Oh, I want to be an ED because I want to make this kind of money. Right? Oh, I want to do this because I want to help people. Do you really? Right. Like, you know what I mean? But when you get to this place where you're like, well, I'm tired of my daughter saying, Daddy, like, are you going to tuck me into bed tonight? But I can't because I'm at work. Right? Like, am I going to get to a place where I'm tired of my parents saying, you know what, son, we're 7 years old and we keep having to move from place to place because we can't keep up with it. Like, that hurt me. And I had to get to a place where I was like, this ain't it. And the only way that I see a light at the end of the tunnel is if I go there, right? And so it turned into all out massive action. I didn't care what she said, he said, how I looked. Like, I couldn't grow and get better and look good at the same time. It was like, I don't care. Do you want to run with it? No, you don't? Okay, cool. I needed that no because I got to get to this yes. It just was flat out massive action and getting to a place where I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired.
All right. Hey, what's up, guys? What's up? Hey, glad that you can be here. What's going on? Jared B. He's always first, right? If you can be more like Jared B., you can always be first on the Young Pro podcast. We're here every week, and we got a special guest. But the video you just saw, you can go get more of that. That's our man, Edmund Hunter. You can go and check it out on Instagram or our YouTube. That's going to be at Young Pros Official on Instagram or YouTube. We got a bunch of stuff. We actually just dropped some new videos, right? So if you're ever dealing with people like, I don't have any time, I don't have any money, like, how do you handle that? So we actually have dropped some videos to help you with handling those things. So I hope you're ready. Text somebody to get them on this, right? Because we get to hear from a special guest and a bunch of folks. I got your questions, and it's not too late. If you want to drop a question into the chat, we might be able to get to that. But I hope you're ready. So we have the pleasure of interviewing today the president of networking for all of Legal Shield, right? This is a North American company, a multi-billion-dollar company. And just so you know a little bit about him before we jump into it, right? He's been with the company. He started as a young pro in his mid-20s, comes from the retail background, was an entrepreneur, struggling entrepreneur. If you don't have a good struggling story, I don't know if that you can verify yourself as that. But anyway, throughout time, really just, went from struggling, kind of getting started, trying to figure things out to, really some of the highest heights with our business, had a fantastic business and climbed the ranks to now president of the company, has done fantastic things for many of us. We're really happy because, nothing wrong with, our home office and things like that. But this guy, he's one of us. Comes from the field and knows how it is to be out there on the grind, making it happen. And so really excited for Mr. Don Thompson. Mr. Thompson, glad you can make it here, man.
Absolutely excited to be here, and it's great to have my name associated with Young Pros. And I was a young pro when I got started 25 years ago. So
did anybody ever was that ever a thing? Did anybody ever said, "Oh man, we should get the young people together. We should call ourselves anything"? Did that ever happen?
No, it's funny when I think back, it wasn't that, but there were a lot of young people when I got started. I think back to Michael Dorsey. When I first met Michael Dorsey, I was 24, and I think Michael was 25. And here I was in a Super Saturday taking notes from Michael Dorsey, like he was, the veteran in the room. I was listening to everything he said because he was an executive director and taking pages of notes. We look back on that and kind of laugh now a little bit, and a good friend of mine. But there were a lot of people our age that when you look at all the people, look at Darnell Self, look at Brian Carruthers. I mean, I knew all of these great leaders when they were in their 20s, and look at the business that they've created over the last 20, 25 years.
Right, exactly. So just for the official record, how old were you when you got started?
I was 24.
Ooh, okay. So I actually started when I was 23. So okay.
Well, I was 23. I was 10 days from my 24th birthday. So I was 20. I started actually in 2 weeks, maybe in a week, almost a week now. We are 25th anniversary in Legal Shield. We started on March 26th of 1996, and my birthday was on April 5th.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty cool. So I know a lot of folks, they're already putting in the chat, right? You have an inspirational story. I've heard it a bunch. I really connect with it. But just for anybody that doesn't know kind of what you were doing professionally, what was going on in life when you got started, just to kind of catch us to speed on that.
Sure. Well, I had attended. I was attending John Carroll University in Cleveland, Ohio. My wife and I both lived in Northwest Ohio. We met in college. I was doing some summer classes. I was 19. I was taking a summer class at the University of Toledo, and I met her in a geology class. And so we knew each other in college. We got out of college, decided to get married, and in 1995 we got married. We also just started a retail business in 1993. So before we were even married, we got in business together, started a retail store in Perrysburg, Ohio. We were in a retail environment, strip mall, 2,400 square feet, and spent $40,000 getting that business.
Wow. So, okay. So, Michelle, right? We were dating when I first joined the business, and she's been extremely, extremely supportive, even through some of those lean years. But I didn't spend $40,000 to start Legal Shield.
No.
So I know your wife Angela is amazing and supportive. But what was those conversations like?
That was tough because we knew, and we'd been together for a while at that point. We knew we were going to get married, and we knew that we didn't want to work for someone else. We wanted to have our own business. So we both had college degrees. We believed in education, but we also believed in entrepreneurship. And so, unfortunately, her father had passed away, and we had a little bit of life insurance money. So it was actually her $40,000, which made the conversations even more interesting. But she believed in our dream of having our own business, and so together we decided that we would take this money, we would put it into a business, and that's how we launched a retail store at the age of 22 or 23 years old. And so I always knew that. But when Legal Shield was approached, I was actually approached by Angela's brother, John Byro, in Fort Lauderdale. Okay. And he sent me some information and said, hey, take a look at this information. And at that point, we'd been in business for 2 years, and we hadn't made the money we wanted to make in retail. And quite frankly, we were losing some money. And so I said, if I can make an extra $500 or $1,000 a month in this company, it would take some pressure off of taking money out of the retail business.
Gotcha. And so since it's coming from her family, it was probably more accepted then, right?
Yeah, I don't know about that. You know how family is.
Yeah, my in-laws, God bless them, they do see this sometimes. Hey Pam, if you do see this, she wasn't a big fan, but she's my number one fan now. So
yeah, it's actually kind of a funny story because Angela's brother approached me and he sent me this huge box. Now back then we had videotapes and VHS tapes, and so he sent me an enormous box of stuff to look at. And the first thing he said was, "Hey, just take a look at this and see if you might be interested." And when I looked in the box, I thought it's going to take me a week and a half just to look at all this stuff. So I kept putting it off to the side and putting it off to the side. And it took him 6 months to convince me to pull out one VHS tape and pop it in and just take a look at it. So that, the follow-up's the key, because it took him 6 months to get me to look at one video that was in that box.
So let me ask you this. Do you think if he would have just handed you one VHS tape and said, hey, can you watch this, and like giving you like a short time, that you actually would have done it, do you think?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing was I didn't know him that well. So even though he was my brother-in-law, I lived in Ohio. He was in Fort Lauderdale. I'd only met him twice at a couple weddings. And so it wasn't like we had this big bond where he could say, hey, Don, take a look. So he kept calling me. And it got to the point where I was ignoring his calls. I'd tell my wife, like, hey, if your brother calls, I'm not here. I haven't looked at those tapes yet. But one day he called me and he said, listen, because there's one videotape in there. It's 20 minutes long. He goes, put it in. And I promise you, if you're not interested after you watch that, I will never call you again about this. So I actually watched it just so he would stop calling me. I sat down with a notepad just like this. And I was going to take notes on all the reasons I did not want to join. So that way, when I called him back, because I knew he was going to ask me, why didn't I want to join? And I was going to give him all the reasons. And when I was done watching that 20-minute tape, Angela looked at my notebook and she goes, you didn't write anything down. Oh. And then she goes, you're going to do this, aren't you? And I'm like, I can't think of a reason why not to do this. This membership is great. I didn't know anything about this. And that was kind of how I got introduced to the business.
So like I'm hearing a lesson, right? Sometimes we just blast people with check out this and check out that and do that thing. But if you just like give them one thing and narrow it down, it might get done a little bit quicker. But
one thing, yeah.
So, this is maybe a tangent, but I just realized this. Are you an Ohio State fan?
Boy, okay. So
You might have to end this early.
all right. Well, I have a long history here because I grew up an Ohio State fan. I actually went to the University of Michigan as a freshman on a scholarship. So even though I was a Buckeye, I went to Michigan. I played rugby in the Big Ten championship for the University of Michigan. But then I got to my senses there, Josh, and I left Michigan because but I was always a closet Notre Dame fan, to be honest with you, and that was my dream school to go to. I got accepted to Notre Dame, but I didn't have the money to go to Notre Dame, and so my youngest son now is a junior at Notre Dame. So I've got to say, go Irish! I am Notre Dame and Florida State fan where my other son went to school.
Okay, all that's fine. All that's fine. You know, we're from Michigan. We're UM fans. I wrestled in college, and I did beat the guy from Ohio State. I just want to let you know that.
Okay.
So. All right. So I was actually I was talking to Daniel Gonzalez. I know he interviewed you a while back, and I've heard you say this before, right? Your first year, it wasn't the best. If you want to share anything about that. So, but then I heard you say, well, I found out some things, and then, you know, we're hitting executive director. It wasn't super consistent, but shortly after that, you were hitting executive director. So, I wanted to ask, what was the difference between year one, you know, running that business briefing and then hitting executive director? Like what happened in between there?
Yeah, it's really, it's interesting. It's a mindset. My first year, I made $1,593. I'll never forget that $10.99 I got. Now, remember, I started in March 26th. That was for 3/4 of a year, but still $1,593. And it wasn't that I wasn't working the business. And my third week in the business, I met a gentleman named Dave Sabula, who was the #1 money earner in the company. You knew Dave well. And he told me to go back to Toledo, where I was from, and start a weekly meeting. So imagine this. I'm 3 weeks into the business. I'm now renting a hotel room every Tuesday night, paying for a hotel room every Tuesday night. I'm the only associate in Toledo with me and my team. So the only people who are going to show up were the people on my team and any of their guests. So we couldn't rely on the rest of the area to support us. I'm paying $50 a week for this hotel. So talk about having pressure to bring people, because if not, I paid $50 to talk to my dad and my brother and a couple of people on my team. So we would all invite every week, and we struggled that whole first year. A year into the business, I went to the international convention, and I met a lot of people that were making 6-figure incomes. And again, I'm barely 24, 25 years old. I'm meeting people that are just have had a lot more success in the business. And I made a commitment at that convention to go executive director, and we did. We went executive director the next year, but that second year in the business, I made about $12,500. And in the third year in the business, I would be executive director 1 month. I'd miss the next month. I'd make a month, miss a month, and we made about $20,000. So my first 3 years in Legal Shield, I made a combined total of about $33,000 for the whole first 3 years. And I'll never forget this conversation. This is really important. I had one of my best buddies. He had gone to law school, so we were roommates in college. We'd known each other since we were in 5th grade. Went to high school together. We were roommates at John Carroll University. And he's having a conversation with me one day, and he goes, Don, when are you going to stop working that business, man? It's not working for you. He's like, how much money have you made in the last 3 years? I see you working your butt off. And I said, well, I've made about $30,000. He goes, man, 30. He says, you work your tail off in that business, and you're making 30,000. He goes, when are you going to do something different? And I said, Joe, you and I just look at things differently. I said, you just finished 3 years of law school. And I said, it cost you about $60,000 to go to law school. So you were learning your profession, and you paid and invested $60,000 of your money to learn a profession that you are going to have for the rest of your life. I said, I made $30,000 learning my profession because I now feel positioned to have success in this business that I know is my life journey. So in my eyes, I'm $90,000 ahead of you. You spent $60,000, I made $30,000, and it's all about mindset, how you really view your success and what you're going to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, I've had those exact thoughts. You know, like I had friends that when I started were still in college, racking up debt, and we had some of those same conversations. So I like that. I like that you said that. And so if anybody, Edmund Hunter says, for anybody that doesn't know, a business briefing is like, you know, a Zoom call, but just in person. If you remember what that's like over a year ago.
You actually rented a hotel room, spent money, put out chairs. And back then I had a whiteboard and an easel back in 1997. So
and it didn't even have a clicker, right?
I remember when we used to have the actual overhead projector with the clear, the laminates you'd put on top of the overhead projector to do our presentations. That's how we would do that.
Nice. So, all right. So anyway, so that you started, you kind of made the shift, right? You looked at that as, hey, this is my learning stage. And then I guess the next two kind of parts of your story I wanted to ask you about is, okay, so that happened. And then what happened between then and the six-figure ring?
Well, it's still, I'd love to say that after that 3-year journey, everything came together. It just all clicked. And boy, the next year we made six figures, but that's not our story. In 1999, we were still living in Toledo, and, we made I think we made 30 or 35,000 that year. We by the way, we sold the retail store in 1997. So now I'm full-time in Legal Shield. My wife was a preschool teacher making about an extra $200 a week. So the only money that we had coming into the household was the money she was making, the money I was making. And, thank God she had that little job, because there were some weeks where, maybe things were a little bit tight, and now that really bought the groceries that week. And, so we know what it's like to go through that, and we struggled there for a little while. But here's what we didn't struggle with. We never struggled with our attitude. My wife absolutely would always tell me, anytime I would even have thoughts of, maybe I should just go get a job. I'm pretty smart. I've got my degree and I could probably go do that. She would say, hey, you're never going to be happy. They're never going to pay you what you're worth. Keep building this business. I have faith. And we ended up moving to Florida in 2001. I was actually, an executive director. My brother-in-law flew me down to Fort Lauderdale to be a guest speaker at a Super Saturday. It was January. It was beautiful weather in Fort Lauderdale. We had a great time. I came back to Toledo Express Airport. There was 11 inches of ice on my car. I was chipping it off with a credit card. I half jokingly told my wife, if it was up to me, we'd move to Florida. And she says, fine by me. So the next week we sold the house and we moved to Florida. So we were in Florida a couple months later. That's how I got to Florida 20 years ago. And we kept building our business. Now, what other business can you just pick up and leave and keep on building your business? And so and to this day, I still have, ring earners on my team from Ohio and from West Virginia, the team I started while I was there. Moved to Florida. And it was in 2009 when we got our six-figure ring. So every year we would just do a little better than the year before. We'd make 35,000, and then we'd make 45,000, and then we made 50,000, made 55,000, and it was just like this slow, but I could see it like compounding on each other. And so finally in 2009, we were recognized with the six-figure ring.
Okay. So well, let's see. When did you, was that Oklahoma or Vegas that year? That
was Vegas.
I was there. There.
Yeah. I gave my ring speech in Vegas.
Yeah, man. So our story is kind of the same. We were living in Michigan, and we were having like a little bonfire out back, and we had just got married, and we'd always talked about we wanted to move. My former career in the insurance world, like you couldn't leave the state. And so we were like, we should move. You want to move? And Michelle was like, yeah. I was like, you want to move out of the, different street, different city, or different state? Different state. And within like 10 minutes, we made a plan. We were going to move. Okay, this is what we got to do to the house. And it was like 6 weeks later it was listed. 2 months later we moved. It was crazy.
Yeah. So. We were kind of the same way. Matter of fact, we didn't even see the house we were moving into. We rented a house first in Florida because we wanted to figure out where we wanted to live. And my brother-in-law called me and says, there's a house for rent down the street from us. I go, give him a deposit. That's where we're moving. I didn't even see the house. He didn't even send me a picture. When we pulled up with a moving truck, that's the first time my wife and I even saw what the house looked like that we were going to move into. So
that sounds, that story sounds very, very similar. All right. So, okay. So then what happened? So, and again, for anybody that hasn't heard your story, right? It was like you hit 100, and then it was like just a couple of years later, not that long. Now we're at 300. So, how did you do a triple? What'd that look like?
Well, it's funny. I always tell people when they hit manager, you're a lot closer to executive director than you think. Yeah. When you hit executive director, you're a lot closer to bronze or silver than you think. When you hit 50,000, when you hit your $50,000 ring, you're not halfway to your 100,000. You're well past halfway to your 100,000. Because when you see people hit their 50,000, you know, and by the way, back then, if we'd had a $50,000 ring, which we didn't have back then, I might have been a ring earner in 2004, 2005, and then got the six figure in 2009. But momentum is a crazy thing. When you've got momentum in your business, things grow exponentially.
Yeah.
So two things happened between 2009 and 2013, and when we got our $300,000 ring, is one, our team started growing at a faster rate. So things just start happening faster and faster and faster. I probably got better. I mean, you know, every year you keep doing something, you're going to get better. So my skills improved. I became a better leader. My team started growing faster. And then also something else kind of magical happened. And that is that we earned out our debit balance. So, you know, so all of a sudden the residual income that had been paying down our debit balance are flowing into our bank account. Yeah. And all of a sudden, all this residual income I had heard about was like, oh my gosh, this is like serious money here we're talking about. So we had really good retention and built a good business. And we were getting paid on what we were currently doing. We were getting paid on the last 13 years of business, and it just compounded to over $300,000 in income in just a few short years.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna, you know, you mentioned that about like you're closer once you hit the 50, you're building momentum. So I'm just gonna go ahead. I've already mentioned his name. I'm gonna mention again is Mr. Edmund Hunter. He's gonna be the next six-figure young pro guy pretty soon here. Just the way he hit his 50, it's coming. I know it.
Well, I'll share this with you, Josh, real quick, because I think this is important. It took me 11 years to make my first $1 million in Legal Shield. It took me 5 years to make my second $1 million. It took me 3 years to make my third $1 million. And so it just goes to show how it just keeps on compressing and compressing and compressing. And by the way, we made 300. I got our $300,000 ring in 2013, and we never had a year that was less than 300,000 since then.
Yeah. All right. You heard it. So I got some questions here. I'd like to go through them, but before we do that, we were talking about some things on your wall that I think maybe newer folks might have no idea what those gold things are.
Sure. So this is in my wall here, my $1,000 golden app. Back then we called them a golden app, and that's when you personally sell 1,000 memberships, you get this one. And then when I hit 2,000 personal memberships, I got this one. 3,000 personal memberships, 4,000 personal memberships. Let's see here, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. So 7,000 personal memberships is for the level that I'm at. That's how many personal memberships I've enrolled.
So maybe now we just have like a little like statue of like the Legal Shield app or something.
Yeah. You know, this is the Millionaire Club plaque I got back in 2013, and then this is the very first ring earner plaque I ever got is up on my wall over here all by itself there. So but then I got my other stuff back over here.
Oh, nice. I like it. All right, cool. So I got some questions here, if you don't mind. These are in no particular order, but we put some posts out over the last day or so. People have been just dropping them in various places, and I'm just kind of collect them all. Let's see. So I got some, you know, they kind of range in simplicity and more complex. So this one was a good one. So this is a two-part question. So the first part of it is, what advice would you give to somebody that's working with a new person to help them get excited and committed about being in Performance Club? That's the first part, and I'll give you the second part. Okay.
I think stories are what sell. And so until you have your own story, certainly share other stories. But for example, the amount of money that I have been personally paid in Performance Club. I have personally qualified for Performance Club. I think it's 240 something months in a row. And by the way, every month that I've been president of Legal Shield for the last 2.5 years, I've never missed a month of Performance Club personally. So I've kept the streak alive. 240 months. I qualified the very first month of the program, never missed a month. And I have been paid over 6 figures in bonuses on just Performance Club. So if you think Performance Club is just an extra $100 a month or $300 a month, you wait until that starts adding up, and all of a sudden you look back and like, oh my gosh, this one bonus paid me over $100,000. When you share that with a person, all of a sudden they start seeing the power of Performance Club. And so there's two ways to keep them excited. One is what's in it for them, but the second part is It's what keeps you qualified for executive director. When you wake up on the first of the month and you've got 25 people on your team that are going to performance club qualify this month, and you know that, why? Because they've performance club qualified for 10 months in a row, 8 months in a row, 20 months in a row, 50 months in a row. You know you've got a solid foundation in your business, and that's really how you can determine what level that you're going to attain yourself, is how many performance club qualifiers you have.
Absolutely, absolutely. In our household, the 7th of the month is a sacred day.
When those bonuses get deposited.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So the second part of that, and I'll give this question comes from Mr. Javon Edwards, who's on right now. So back in the day, right, we had the PC pins, right?
Yeah.
Can we get them back?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that sounds. I like that idea. So the PC pins. I'm going to write that down. Who gave that suggestion?
Javon Edwards.
Javon, Southern California.
Yeah, I know he still has his old pin, and I still have mine. I wore that a lot. I like that.
All right, Javon, I'm putting it down. PC pin. I'm putting it in my notes. All right.
All right. So, okay, kind of answered that question. This is kind of a unique one. All right. I've never had anybody ask this before. So I guess looking at, like our product line, our different services, our different divisions, is there a part of the service or division where you would say maybe it's underserved, or maybe people should pay more attention to, maybe there's some kind of inherent upside to it?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things that we don't talk enough about right now is privacy management on ID Shield. I think sometimes, we've been talking about ID Shield for a long time, and it's always been focused on restoration and monitoring, which are fantastic. But privacy is the new identity theft word from 20 years ago. 20 years ago, people started talking about identity theft. It's like, well, what is this, and how does this work? Today, privacy. You turn on the news, you watch, you read an article. There's so many articles about who has your information, what are they doing with your information, who are they selling your information to, how can I go on to the web and do transactions with everyone tracking me, things like that. And that's part of our identity theft membership, ID Shield, is privacy management. So if you want to know, for example, how can I use search engines that don't track me, or what are they tracking, contact ID Shield, talk to our professionals who have a lot of information they can share with you around privacy management. So I think that would be a great conversation to have right now.
That's good. And I wouldn't even thought of that. So I'm glad that you said that. And I just had something. And we always joke about it, right? You say something, and then next thing you know, you see all these ads. So I bought a new desk recently, and it's one of those hydraulic desks that you stand up. It's very nice. I'm very excited about it. But I was putting it together, and so I'm listening to YouTube. So I just had music on. I'm doing my thing. I haven't said anything. I haven't been online that day. And in between songs, an ad comes up for putting the desk together that I was putting together. It was the creepiest thing.
Right.
So, anyway.
So who's got your info, and what are they doing with it? And you know what? And that's a great conversation to have, and a relevant conversation, and something ID Shield can help with. Yeah.
I love it. So, couple last about 3 questions here. This is a good one. What advice would you give your younger self when you got started as a young pro, looking back? Maybe to have success quicker. Maybe there was a hurdle that you had that looking back, you're like, any advice that stands out?
Yeah, let me handle it from 2 ways. One is, what advice would I give myself? I think that the biggest thing I would have done differently is really try to not do it my way. I think when I first got started, I was one of these folks, I'd go out and create pitch books and try to be real creative. And, and Dave Savola would always say, just do 2 a day in a weekly meeting. I'm like, it can't be that simple, and I would say, be a master of the system, because your way might even work better than the system, but it's not going to beat the system. You can't beat a good system. And so even if you have the best burger in the world, you're not going to beat McDonald's, because they have the best system of delivering burgers in the world. And so they don't have to have the best burger because they have the best system. So be system dependent, not people dependent. The piece of advice I'd give myself as a young leader, which is a different piece of advice, is when I first took over leadership positions, whether I became a brand new network vice president in Florida or an area, or a brand new area coordinator, is I was very quick to talk about what I wanted to do to help grow. And I was very short to listen to lots of other ideas around me. And there's a lot of value in listening to other people. And so you never have all the answers. You always want to listen. You always want to listen to people that have done it before you, because they have a lot of value. I just got off of a Zoom with John Addison, former CEO of Primerica. And I listen to everything John Addison tells me. Why? Because he led a network marketing company for 20 years. He's been doing what I'm trying to do. And so I want to learn from his mistakes. I want to learn from his successes. I want to learn from every piece of advice that he has, so I can incorporate that into my best self as a leader. So I would say just learning to listen to a lot more around you before you try to lead people.
No, that's good. That's good. Listen. There's a bunch of ways, little quotes I've heard, but yeah, listen first, be interested before being interesting. Things I'm thinking about. So the last two questions here are a bit more thoughtful. And so somebody asked, and I don't know if anybody's ever asked you this. So this is, this is good. This is good. So when you became president of the networking division for Legal Shield, was that ever a goal that you had, or was that just, right place, right time, man for the job, or like somehow it just kind of worked out?
Great question. Great question. Goal. I don't know if goal is the right word, but I always believe in putting myself in the right position. I always believe in trying to add the most value to whatever I'm doing. If you're always adding value around you without worrying about the compensation that goes with it, you're going to be a whole lot better off. Too many people are in it. What's in it for me right now? And I've always been, if I just give me an opportunity, I'll add value, because then I can have other opportunities. So let me give you an example. When I was a regional director of a small area in Toledo, Ohio, there wasn't much money in being a regional director. I was helping lead other areas and things like that. But I did it because I got around people that were successful, and I just gleaned from them and learned from them. And then when other opportunities came up, I always said yes to those opportunities because it got me around other people. When I became a network vice president, I got to be around other people that were better than me, and so forth. When I got to take other roles as a senior network vice president, I got to spend a lot of time with people like Darnell Self and other leaders that maybe I wouldn't have had access to in that way, but I was able to because of the leadership roles that I had taken. So to say, was it a goal of mine someday to be president of the company? No. Did it surprise me? No. And the reason it didn't surprise me is because over the course of the time, I had gone from being a leader as a regional director to running a small area, to running a state as a network vice president, helping that state go to one of the to the number 2 recruiting and producing state in the company, and then being given more responsibilities. And then I was given 8 states to run as a senior network vice president. And then I was asked to take on 2 states as a network vice president and a state as a business vice president, which I did. And then I was given 26 states to run as a senior network vice president and 4 provinces of Canada. And so the more responsibility that I got, people would start joking with me and saying, someday you're just going to be president of the company. And I started going, maybe that could actually be the case. I could see that. I'm not going to ask for it, but who knows? But again, if you just add value. So when I was offered the position, I don't think it came from right field from me, as far as left field from me. I was very honored to be offered the position and very excited to take it.
Awesome.
And by the way, it's the only corporate job anywhere I would have taken. It's the only. I've never had a corporate job. Didn't want a corporate job, but I love this company, and if I can add value and help improve the company, that's why I'm here. And that's the only corporate job I would have ever taken.
Yeah, no, I concur. So, and we're happy to have you. So I'm getting a bunch of text and different things going on right now, but different people are throwing things in there.
That's okay. You can throw them at me.
We'll share them later.
Okay.
So, real quick, if you guys are enjoying this, right? If you want to be the first to know, you always want to make sure we have these types of where to get the information, who we're going to be interviewing, the events, the trainings. We have some big events coming up surrounding convention. Make sure to go over to youngproconnect.com. Fill out the form at the bottom. That site will get you everywhere you need to go, and you'll be on the first to know list. So all these questions that I got, many of them came because people went to Young Pro Connect. They were on basically our newsletter. So we sent out some forms yesterday for people to be able to submit these questions. So if your question's getting asked, it's probably because you already went to youngproconnect.com. So make it over there. But So anyway, we got this is a two-part question. Because this is the Young Pro podcast, right? I would say, what looking forward, what are you most excited about what the Young Pros have done, are doing, or where they're heading? However you want to answer that question. And then the second part of that is, what is kind of your vision looking forward 5 years, 10 years down the road for Legal Shield as a whole?
That's two great questions. First of all, I'm really excited about what Young Pros is doing right now. One of our goals a year and a half ago was to get younger at Legal Shield, and we've done that. And Josh, your leadership has been outstanding. The way that you've led this group and the way that you've just brought this group along to just make it what it is today. I applaud you for everything you're doing and all the leaders that are working with you. I know there's a ton of people that are working with you, but already Young Pros is making an impact on the company, no doubt about it. We have more millennials buying our membership than ever before. More younger people buying our membership than ever before. We have more people joining our business that are younger, and that's exciting to me because there's so much upside. I know what it did for me joining at a young age, and there's nothing wrong with getting a Legal Shield when you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s. But at the same time, when you get in at a young age, you can really take advantage of building that huge book of business, the residual income. So it always excites me with Young Pros and when I see young people get involved. What I see for the company is I love the leadership at Legal Shield. We have an outstanding leadership team. I'm really honored to work with them, and it's great for me to be able to spend time with all the leaders in the field, but then also spend all my days with all the leaders at the home office to see the dedication on both sides. Jeff Bell is like no one I've ever worked with before. He is driven. He is mission driven. He loves people. He loves the mission. He wants to see people succeed. And that's what I love about working with Jeff every single day. And, his mission is very simple. He talked about doubling the company and doubling it again and doubling again. I mean, we're a $2.1 billion company today. That's unbelievable. But I see us being a $4 billion company, $5 billion, $10 billion, because we're going to continue to build the membership base. We're going to continue to build our associate base to go out and share and have more entrepreneurs to share this membership. And, really our mission is to make sure every single person in North America is empowered with these memberships and services.
I love that. Right. Growth. We love it. So this wasn't planned for the last question, but this just came in from text message. And I think Mr. Edmund Hunter has probably paid attention at some leadership conferences and convention. So he asks, he wants to know, what wasn't asked today that you would have asked?
Oh boy, that sounds familiar. All right, the old John Maxwell. Thank you, Edmund. I'm glad you were paying attention to my story. So, I think the one question I wasn't asked about today that I would like to talk about briefly is the trophy that I'm most excited about in my trophy case. I'm going to go get it for you right now.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome, you guys. As he's doing that, right, let's fill up the chat. Let him know that we appreciate his time.
So in 2008, the year before I got my six-figure ring, I received this award, and the reason it means so much to me is because I had retention challenges when I started my business. I missed the first 2 trips because my retention was too low. I did not get paid my car bonus for the first 2 years that I qualified for it because my retention was too low. And I made a decision to improve my retention. And then at the international convention in 2008, I received this award by Legal Shield. And it simply says, Don and Angel Thompson, the 8th highest retention rate in the nation for our organization. So we went from an organization that had a retention that was too low to even receive a car bonus. But because we changed our focus and really made that a mission to change and talk about with our team, we actually were able to get an award for the 8th best retention of any organization in the company. And that's the award I'm most proud of because I know how much work went into that award. I know where we came from. And it was because of that 6 or 7 years later, we were able to go from $100,000 to $300,000 a year in income because when your retention goes up, residuals go up, chargebacks go down, and the percentage of residual income you earn on your business goes up. Everything gets better. You make more money for doing the same amount of effort. And so it was the work that we did for this award that enabled us to get the $300,000 ring about 6 years later. So that's the one thing I'd like to talk about that I didn't get a chance to, is how important that your retention is, especially at a young age in your business.
Absolutely. Oh no, that is good. That is good. Absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we have something going on this Saturday surrounding that, right?
Save Saturday, right? So go on Facebook Success. I did a retention tip of the day yesterday. I did a retention tip of the day today. I'll do 3 more this week. And we have all kinds of retention resources and Prospect by Legal Shield and LS Engage. Go check out. But participate, and it's a 3-legged stool: production, recruiting, retention.
Awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate you being on. And guys, I told you Young Pro Connect, but if you want to make sure that you're always up to date on whatever latest podcast interview that we've put out, you can go to youngproshowcase.com. So if you want to catch this on replay, or you want to go back and look at past, that's where it's going to happen, youngproshowcase.com. So appreciate everybody being on. Don, really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, so I know the young pros are excited that you shared with us.
Absolutely. Excited to be here tonight. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.